Om Krim 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 Hum Hum Hrim Hrim Dakshine Kalike Krim 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 Hum Hum Hrim Hrim Swaha.
Danvaye Namaha.
Om Taraye Namaha.
Tarunavallarye Namaha.
Om Chidarupaye Namaha.
Om Darye Namaha.
Om Shyamaye Namaha.
Danukshinanaye Namaha.
Om Payoharaye Namaha. Ye Namaha. Om Brahmarupinye Namaha. Om Vagishwarye Namaha. Om Yogarupaye Namaha. Om Yoginye Namaha. Om Pradipadaye Namaha.
Om Pranadakleshanasinye Namaha.
Om Prabhavatye Namaha.
Om Gunavatyay Namaha.
Om Ganamatre Namaha.
Om Guhyeshwarye Namaha.
Om
Ye Namaha.
Om Bhudidaye Namaha.
Om Bhutye Namaha.
Om Bhutidaitre Namaha.
Om Bhairavye Namaha.
Om Bhairavachara Nirataye Namaha.
Om Bhutasevitaye Namaha. Om Attatahasaniratye Namaha. Om Malinambaradharinye Namaha. Om Vriddhaye Namaha. Om Virupaye Namaha. Om Vidhavaye Namaha.
Sarvalokavashankarye Namaha.
Om Veda Vidyaye Namaha.
Om Mahapujyaye Namaha.
Om Bhaktadveshye Namaha.
Bhayankarye Namaha.
Om Stambharupaye Namaha.
Sthambinyay Namaha. Mahasiddhakandaye Namaha.
Om Makarapriyaye Namaha.
Manarupaye Namaha.
Om Maheshye Namaha.
Maholaasinyay Namaha.
Om Laksalilalayangye Namaha.
प्रसख्य साहिने नमो वयं वै श्रवणाय कूर्महे तदे कामकामकामाय मह्यं कामेश्वरो वै.
Shrimatre Namaha. Namaskaram, everyone, and welcome back to our Sacred Rites and Rituals of Sanatana Dharma learning series, which is a joint presentation by the Sri Vidya Temple Society of Rochester, New York, USA, and Ashtanga Yoga Mandir of Sri Lanka. These lectures are conducted by Sri Chaitanyanandanatha, affectionately known as Ayya. Ayya is the founder and Pitadipati of the Sri Vidya Temple. Both Ayya and Amma, Srimati Nyanamba, have dedicated their lives to the noble mission of preserving and spreading the knowledge of Devi worship and the rich tradition of Saiva Bhakti. A few housekeeping reminders before we begin today's session. Please make sure to use the question form to share any questions you might have pertaining to the content discussed. For those viewing our live stream, our question form can also be found on our webpage, which is srividya.org/AYM-lectures. At this time, we will hand it over to Ayya.
Om Hamsat Siva Soham Hamsaha Hasaka Frame Hasakshamaravarayum Hasaum Sahakshamaravarayim Sahau Swarupa Nirupana Hetave Swagurave Sri Annapurnamba Sameta Srila Sri Amrutanandanada Saraswati Mahapattaraka Mama Sri Guru Sri Padukam Pujayami Tarpajami Namaham. My humble pranams to my esteemed Guruji, Srila Sri Amrutanandanada Saraswati of Devi Puram, India. I prostrate before him and implore that he sit on my open heart lotus and speak through me. We were looking at Yantras. Now today, I wish to speak to you about other traditions that have also used yantras. In Buddhism, the structures that they worship, depending whether it is Mahayana or Hinayana Buddhism, they have what are called dagobas. And these dagobas, the ground plan of these dagobas, if you look carefully, are actually yantras with 4 openings, exactly as we have in our faith, in Sanātana Dharma. These dagobas are found in many countries. India, famously in a place called Sanchi. Now, what you see here is a basic plan of a dagoba. On the right-hand side is an aerial photograph of the actual structure that has been built. On the left-hand side is what you see is exactly what the formation is like. In the Bindusthanam, there is a square, and that square is called Devata's Kotua in Sinhalese. And in the cardinal directions, they are built with seemingly openings that are called Vahal Kades. A Vahal Kade is one of the Dwaras, Purva, Dakshina, Paschima, and Uttara Dwaras. The Sinhalese name for them is Vahal Kade. And the structures are huge. If we can go to a structure, this is the stupa at Sanchi. This was one of the first Buddhist stupas that are there, and you will see where it says Torana, Torana, gateway. On your right-hand side, right next to the word stairway, you will see another Torana. And on the left-hand side, where you find circumambulatory path, there is another Torana that you can see. Now, these are the 4 entrances that I was talking to you about. And the various parts of this stupa or dagoba, sometimes they are called pagodas. You will see the various parts of it are mentioned. Now you will see where it says Harnika, quadrangular railing. That developed further as the faith spread into a solid structure, which was called Devadas Kotua in Sinhalese. If we can go to Tuparamaya, there are many such. This is one of the old one, the first Buddhist temple that was constructed after the arrival of Mahinda. Who was Mahinda and Sangamita? They were son and daughter of Emperor Asoka. They took a sapling from the bo tree under which the Buddha attained nirvana and traveled with him to Sri Lanka and converted the king who was ruling this country, and from there Buddhism started to spread. Now you see the square portion of the dome that you see there, that is called a Devata's Kotua. And then the finial has developed from the time of the Sanchi stupa. The finial and the square is Devata's Kotua, and the stupa in this, some part of the Buddha's body or some relic of the Buddha's body is kept there, buried there. And the entrances, you will see one of the entrances right in front of you it's called the Ohalkade. Interesting stories are there about this. This is one of them. If we can go down the list of the other stupas that are there in Sri Lanka, some of them are over 1,500 years old. Now this is quite a big one. Ruwanveli Mahasaya, also known as Mahastupa, the Great Stupa, is a stupa, a hemispherical structure containing relics in Anuradhapura, Sri Lanka. If you have been to Sri Lanka and you have taken a train journey, when you pass the station in Anuradhapura, you will see this imposing structure that's quite tall, well over 200 feet. Now, it is very interesting. If you look at the stupa portion of it, the great white semicircular portion of it, if you see it, you will see that it is not perfectly semicircular. There's a kink there. Something very interesting. When it was first constructed, it was perfect. That's over 1,000 years ago. When it was first constructed, it was perfect. Then in the 1800s or early 1900s, it was renovated because it was falling apart. And with all the engineering that the modern world knew, they could not achieve the semicircular portion. And it remains like that to this day. Now, if you look at this photograph, you will find a small shrine-like in the front of it, to your left. That is one of the Vahalkades. And there is a circumambulatory path. You can walk around it. And can we go to the next one? This is the largest of them in Sri Lanka. This is Abhayagiri Vihara, major monastery of Mahayana, Theravada, and Vajrayana Buddhism that is situated also in Anuradhapura, Sri Lanka. This one, in the present day, it is like this, in this condition. They have not attempted to build it back, renovate it. Now, go to the next one, please, if we have. This is the Sanchi. Look at the refinement here. Although this was one of the first ones. Buddhist temple complex, famous for its great stupa on a hilltop at Sanchi town in Raisan district of Madhya Pradesh, India. This is a national treasure now, and it is maintained by the Antiquities Division, I believe. Go to the next one, please. Now, Bauddhanath Temple in Kathmandu, Nepal. Please see the similarities that you find with the Mahameru in the first Avarana. The first one and the second one and the third one are built in this one. And then the Devdas Kotua is not outside of the finial. It's built as part of the finial. I have an interesting anecdote to tell you. When I was in the university, at the conclusion of the first year, before summer vacation. We were expected to be given to the, or loaned to the Department of Archaeology. And the first year we traveled to many places. There are hundreds of ancient Buddhist and Hindu archaeological sites in Sri Lanka. Some of them have still not been excavated. The time of Nisankamalla, Parakramabahu, many kings. The first year we went to a place called Dimbulagala. There's an ancient Buddhist temple there with ruins of a palace of a king and his bathing pavilions and all that. And if you leave the site of this particular excavation, you have to walk through 15 miles of elephant and leopard and wild buffalo infested jungle to reach the closest village. So we were camped there for quite some time. And we had to do what is called a measured drawing, which means when the excavation is going on, if they hit upon something or they discover something that is there as an old structure, as they quietly remove the topsoil covering it, carefully with handheld brushes, we have to measure whatever that has been exposed and produce drawings exactly in situ. That means exactly where it was. These are called measured drawings. Just 140 kilometers, 90 miles north of Kandy, are the ruins of ancient Polannarva, which date from the late 10th century when the Chola kings of southern India invaded Sri Lanka and conquered Anuradhapura. Now, you will see on the right-hand side the ground plan of the stupa that is there. The other buildings are ancillary buildings. They are temples or other ancillary structures that were there in support of this main stupa. If you look at it, this is just taken from the web. It's called the Polannarva quadrangle. And the deities, you will see very clearly the 4 Vahalkades. And around, before you come to the first circumambulatory path, there is another shrine. So it's a little different from what we saw a few. These are all Yantras, remember. Please go to the next one. And when we started to the second year, at the end of the second year, 4 of my batchmates and myself, we obtained permission from the Department of Architecture in the university and embarked on a bicycle tour all around Sri Lanka, visiting ancient sites, archaeological sites. Of course, we did not know where to go or the unexcavated places, but we went all over the place. And in the town of Anuradhapura, where you can see the Abhayagiri Vihara, there's another one called Jetavana Rama. And work was going on for the renovation of that place. And I was the only Tamil, the other 4 were Sinhalese, Buddhists. And they got permission for us to go up to the Devadas Kotua, that is the square portion that is there. that has been clearly excavated and exposed. And I asked the foreman who was in charge of that whether we could descend into the chamber and take a look at it. The chamber was 20 feet by 20 feet. So you can see 20-foot square chamber. And it had been excavated and exposed. On the wall, there were beautiful frescoes that had been drawn. And once it is filled in, that was for Devata, means deities. So the ancillary deities that serve Gautama Buddha were to be worshipped in that place. And I asked the foreman whether he would let us descend down. And very interestingly, he asked me, "Are you vegetarian?" I said, "Yes, I am." And the other four, one gentleman by the name De Silva, he was a vegetarian. He was Buddhist, he was vegetarian. I was Hindu, I was vegetarian. So he gave us permission. The other people were not allowed to descend down. I went into the thing and used one of they had one of these elevators that would bring the thing up and then bring it down there. No railings, nothing. You have to be very careful, otherwise you'll topple. Anyway, I went inside. Then I asked him whether I can take photographs of that because the others were outside. He thought for some time and he said, "Yes, okay, you can. But when you go up and go to the office, you have to sign a release to say that you took photographs with the permission of the supervisor there." And to me, it was a thrilling experience because this 20-foot by 20-foot chamber housed, when they fill the thing in, that is where they place a relic of the Buddha. Some part of the Buddha is placed there, either a bone or some hair or the ashes from his cremation. They still have it. By the way, in Kandy, the hill country capital, there is a temple that is known as the Temple of the Tooth. I have visited that place too. And with reverence, there is a lot of chanting going on. Round the clock, there's spirit, which they chant in Pali. And these things, all of these stupas are yantras. And you can imagine, Buddha's time was 2,500 odd years ago. From the city of Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, in the Saraswati civilization of the Indus Valley, which dates back at least 5,000 years, they found yantras there. So this worship of yantras was not something that was taught up by the Buddhists. After all, Buddha was born a Hindu in Kapilavastu, and he refined a particular facet of Sanātana Dharma. And it became a philosophy, a way of life. So, nevertheless, you could feel the vibration inside that place because it had been in operation for over 1,500 years. And it was in a very poor condition, so the government had decided under pressure. In Sri Lanka, the Buddhist clergy, they have what are called nikayas. With pressure from the nikayas, some of them in the hill country, some of them from the low country Sinhalese. So the government had started to renovate this, and I think I was very fortunate, one of the very few people who had the opportunity to descend down into that chamber and take a look at it. And you could, I had already started, it was 3 years after Mataji had initiated me, and I had been chanting Subramanya Mantra for all of that time, maybe more than 1 million times. And the vibration in that place was phenomenal. So once this was filled in, all the frescoes and all the artwork on the walls is lost to the population. You cannot see it again unless there is an opportunity where renovation is taking place and you see the thing. What had happened was the finial had collapsed in this thing. So there was an opportunity for them to renew what was in there. And I asked the superintendent whether they found an amulet, a vessel, a chamber that would be holding the relics there. He said, I cannot tell you that. So which means that he has already taken it. If it was not there, what is wrong in telling me that, no, we didn't find anything. So I had no knowledge of what was there. I asked my Buddhist friend to ask him again. He asked him, he got the same reply. And then we were asked to come up, and we came out of that chamber. That was a very memorable one. And doing my own research, even at that time, I knew that these stupas were designed from a ground plan of a yantra. These are Buddhist yantras. Can we go to the slides, please? See if you can find any more older ones from Sri Lanka, from Anuradhapura. When the Portuguese came to Sri Lanka, they tried to damage, just like they damaged and destroyed many Hindu temples. They tried to destroy these, but these were too big. They couldn't do anything. To one of them, each of them will have at least, now look at this one. This is Vattadage in Polonnaruwa. I have been here too. But this was in very poor condition. As you can see, in later years, when the destruction took place and the deterioration took place, they have introduced statues of Buddha on the 4 sides, depicting the Bahalkades or the entrances. If you see the sets of steps coming down, those must have been the original entrances for the yantra. So, it is interesting when you look at something like this. And even to this day, they have not been able to come to a conclusion whether the outer walls completely covered the thing. That means the dome-like structure came up and covered the thing. They have no idea. And there are various schools of Buddhism who are still researching this. The other country where you will find, can we go down to the next slide, please? This we have seen. This is Kirivihara, Polonnaruwa. Lanka Tilaka Kirivihara. We saw the ground plan of this thing, and this is actually the whole thing taken from the air. And if you look at the photograph to your right, you will see a sharp needle-like projection up. That is the finial. What we have as a kalasam, they have as a finial. And that square portion is the Devadas Kotua. Now this is a very detailed drawing, stupa of the Great Awakening. If you go there, the explanations of the energy patterns that are created in this, you can see from the 4 entrances, there are 4 circles. The energy patterns are there. And also you can see the first avarana of the Sri Chakra, where you see 3 steps. These must have been copied from the oldest of the Yantras. And there are more steps as you go towards the central portion of the thing. Next one, please. It's more detail of the universal dome stupa, Buddha, cosmos, path, and Dharma. You can see the 1, 2, 3, 4 steps that are leading to it. And sometimes in the in the eagerness to outdo something that has already been done, some of the priests or some of the advisors would increase the number of steps. Whether they had a meaning or whether they knew what the deities were inside each of them, we have no idea. But these are where they have, you will see that there is a Buddha-like figure seated, and they have equated, some of the lines are intersecting at the middle point of his body, which means Manipura Chakram. Other than that, we have no idea what this thing is, but enough sufficient to know that the structure is a yantra. Next one, please. We saw this before. This is in Kathmandu, Nepal. Next slide. Now you see another yantra that has been projected upwards by my guru, our own Guruji. You can see the lotuses, both the 8 and the 16 lotuses are also vertical. There's no curvature, they're vertical. So this is a different type of Meru that has come from the Tanjore side. The structure that you see there is the Sri Chakra temple, built by my guru, and the Devi, all of 5.5 tons of granite, is seated 54 feet above ground level. And you can see she is in the Bindusthanam, and you will see the Ashtakonam, Bahirdasaram, Antardasaram, and some of the other portions are in the ground. But the interesting thing is he constructed it in such a way that you can walk inside the Meru and walk through to the Bindusthanam, visiting all the deities of the Kadgamala Stotra. So this is a Sri Yantra. Next slide. Now here is another visualization that was Guruji's desire, where you see the Meru-like formation is the present temple. And this is called the Manidvipam project, depicted like the Devi is lying on her back. And you can walk through from the Yonisthanam all the way to the Sahasrakamalam of the Devi inside the structure. At that time, maybe about 15 years, 20 years ago, this was estimated to cost something like 10 or 15 crore rupees. Now it might be at least 10 times more than that. Next one, please. Okay. The other faith that uses yantras is Islam. The Sufis have their own yantras. And those of you who have been in India, if you go to a shop or a business where it is owned by a Muslim, invariably behind the counter on the wall, you will find yantras. Blessed yantras. They have their own bijaksharas and chantings and all of them. And the whirling dervishes that you get, that's part of the ritual for them. Now, when we say chatra, chamara, nritta, gita, vadya, stotra, chatra, umbrella, chamara, fly whisk, nritta, dance. So that is where that falls in. And some of them are, I have not personal experience of them, but I have heard people say, especially the gentleman who was in Mumbai, when I went looking for Kasturi and Gorochana, his name was Swaminathan. We became more than casual acquaintances because when he found out that I was interested in the Sri Yantra and I was doing pujas to it, he not only directed me to several practitioners in Chennai, Madras at that time. I spent all of 5 or 6 days in Mumbai, and every day I would go to his store and he would fill me with stories about various people. And he said that those yantras that the Muslims used to have in their stores were also quite powerful. So it appears as though in the beginning ages, in the early stages, there must have been one strong faith for all of humanity. Because this is a slight deviation from the story, from the subject. There are references to a Shivalayam or Shivalayams in Mecca, in the Tirumurais, left by the 63 saints. And those songs are in Tamil, and not all have been published. But out of what has been published, there are references to a Shivalingam, and that place was called Makkeshwaram. And Medina, the name Madaniswaram is being mentioned in the Tirumurai. Now it will tell you two things. One is that the South Indian culture had reached all the way to the Arabian Peninsula. Kuwait was called Kuwaidiswaram. You know the word, if it ends as Ishwaram, you know that it is a Shiva temple. Ishvara, Ishwaram. By the same token, Afghanistan, Kandahar was called Gandharam, which is where Mama came from. That is, Duryodhana's uncle came from there. And Gandhari, Dhritarashtra's wife, came from that area. So, and it is interesting. I don't know whether I mentioned this, but when I was in Oman, there is an old Indian family there, Kimjit Ramdas. They went to Oman from the Ran of Kutch, very close to, they were Gujaratis, and they had been in Oman, they have been in Oman for well over 300 years. And so much so, the only Hindu sheikh, when I say sheikh, is a judge, equivalent to a magistrate. The only Hindu sheikh is from this family. And they fed and protected the Sultan when the Portuguese were trying to starve him to death in his palace. They risked their lives and cooked food for him and took it by boat in the dead of night, and a basket would come down and they'll fill the basket with food and it will be taken up. It was not done for 1 or 2 years, it was done for 35 years, and they never forgot it. And a friendship was there, and the Sultan himself gave the Hindus, this family, a plot of land to build a temple. And they built the temple, and the Sultan came for the consecration of it and stood there bareheaded and barefooted. So I was told, this Kimjit Ramdas family took me to their house because they wanted me to do a Shiva Puja, and I went and did the puja. By the way, all their vessels in the shrine room were gold. And the lady, while we were having dinner, quietly asked me, do you know that this place there have been worship of Shiva for well over 400 years? I said, no. He said, one of those Shiva lingams is still being worshipped. Tomorrow, I will take you there. And she took me there the next day. And puja was going on. The priest was chanting Rudram and pouring milk over the lingam. And this family is very well known and respected in Oman. The priest asked her in Gujarati whether I know Rudram. So she asked me, I said, yes. And the priest said, come and sit close to me. So I was all of 4 feet away from this ancient 400-year-old Shivalingam and chanted Rudram when they did milk abhishekam. So what I mean to say is, this culture had spread from southern India all the way up to there. And they have Yantras. In their tradition, they have Yantras. And that the Sultan has given them permission to hold festivals. You can't, of course, dance and play create a ruckus on the streets, but you can still carry the deity around the temple. All of those things are allowed. So, the Yantras. Can we go to the beginning of our slides? I want to see whether I have missed anything. As we keep going down, maybe I can fill in the gaps. And after that, we can ask questions. Is it done? Okay, so go to the questions then. There is yet some more to be done next week then.
What yantra should you start with first if you are beginning to learn yantra puja?
What puja would you start with if you're learning puja? Ganapati puja, of course. So it is a Ganesh yantra that you should start first. And at least in our sampradayam, before you attempt Ganapati yantra puja, you are supposed to do Chaturavarti Tarpanam of Mahaganapati, which tells you one more thing, requirement, that you should be initiated into Mahaganapati Mantra. The 28 syllables, Om Srim Hrim Klim Glaum Gam Ganapataye Paravarada Sarvajanamme Vashamane Swaha. You should have received the mantra diksha from somebody and you should be doing the japam. And if you had already completed the 444 tarpanams required, then you can attempt learning the Yantra Puja. So you see, for each of the deities, there are particular, what I am trying to say, there will be particular requirements. And you will have to fulfill them before you can attempt anything. Next question.
If your guru gives you a yantra from his hands, is it already energized or do we still have to perform prana pratishta?
If your guru gives you a yantra from his hands, he must be crazy. Is it already energized or do we still have to perform prana pratishta? No, you don't. If your guru has given you a yantra, he has already infused it with energy from his own puja. Do you still have to do the akshara laksha? If your guru has given you that yantra itself, you bet. Because the akshara laksha mantras that you have to do, akshara laksha, for each akshara, there is a laksha, that is 100,000 iterations of the mantra. So, Mahaganapati mantra is 28 syllables. That means you have to do 2.8 million. Now, what is the reason for them to say Akshara Laksha? That mantra japam is not for the yantra. It is for you, for the body. And the body is the actual yantra. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said, Ami yantra, tumi yantri. I am the yantra and you are the Devi. You are the life force of that yantra in my body. And Akshara Laksha, when you chant, it will transform and reprogram the nucleus in every cell in your body. So there you go. Examples, Mahaganapati 28 lakhs, Subramanya 6 lakhs, Mahashodasi 28 lakhs, Shiva Panchakshara 5 lakhs. Next question.
If you have a yantra at home and you do puja to it every day, what should you do when you're traveling? Can you take it with you or should you leave it at home?
If you had been listening to the answer that I just gave to the question just before, I said, Ami yantra, tumi yantri. I am the yantra, the human body. That is the real yantra. So if that yantra is traveling, you don't need to carry the other yantra with you. If you are in a plane, when you are doing japam and the air hostess comes and gives you a tray of food to eat, mentally do naivedyam to the yantra, to the deity that resides within you, and then eat it. You don't need to be carrying the yantra all over the place. What happens if your yantra at home is a 18-inch Meru? How will you carry it? Or if it is a Sarveshwara Murti that's about 18 inches tall, you cannot do that. Therefore, be practical about this. Visualize that you yourself are the yantra and you chant it. And you offer whatever that you can. If you are in a position, whatever that you are eating, share it with somebody. The deity enjoys that more than anything that you can offer it. If you are considerate enough to offer the food to another life, it can be a bird, it can be a dog, it can be a cow. If you do that, you have already reached halfway there. Next question.
When you mentioned that if you offer some of the prasadam, like the naivedam, to another being, does that count as the same as what we give for like bali, or is that separate than what's given for
It's not bali. Whatever prasadam that you are getting, when you are traveling, bali has to be done in your mind. If you get prasadam, let us say you're outside a temple, you're being given a handful of pulihora. You come outside and you can share it with somebody who is seated outside. Invariably in India, you will find them. Somebody less fortunate than you can share it with them. And if you find a bird, or if you find birds, or if you find a dog, you can offer some of it to them. They are all life forms. Or if you find a cow, that would be the best. You would have offered it, if you know anything about a cow, if you had offered it to a cow and she ate it, all 33, Muppadu Mukkodi Devaru, or Mahasadi Koti Yogini Ganasevita, 64 crore deities that are there in the Sri Yantram also are there in the cow. There is nothing, no sin that you can commit on this planet that will not be cancelled out by feeding a cow. Next question.
What happens if you have pets in your home and you also have a yantra?
Keep the yantra in a room, separate room, and keep the door closed. The pets may be there, always. In a king's palace, outside the palace, there will be guards. And along with the guards, there will be cleaning people who are cleaning the street and other things. Will you let those people walk into the king's chamber, in his private chambers? No. Similarly, the yantra is a sacred object. The other life forms, some of them that are there, have to be kept outside the yantra. So, pets, if you must have them in a house, you have to keep the food articles and whatever that you are giving separately from the rest of it. And please remember, if you feed the animal or you clean its litter, make sure that you wash yourself properly before you get inside. Next question.
Are there books or references that you would recommend for us to learn more about Yantra Sthapanam?
There are many of them. The main thing that I would say that you should get familiar with is written by a gentleman by the name of Harish Johari. The title of the book is Yantra. Then if you want to learn more about Yantra, especially the Sri Vidya Yantra, Sri Chakra, there is somebody called Shankara Narayanan, title Sri Chakra. Then there is another author. His name is Ramachandra Rao. This Shankara Narayanan is a mathematician. And he wrote this book somewhere in the 60s, I believe, and it's very valuable. Simply explained. Sri Ramachandra Rao is from Karnataka, and there used to be an organization called Kalpataru. And the director of that was named Somaya Julu. He was one of the main sponsors for Sri Ramachandra Rao. And he has many, many books on iconography and main one is Sri Chakra. Sri Yantra it is called. It's in English, being translated. So I would suggest that you read these. If you can, these days you can order the books through Amazon or other places. Possess them. You cannot read them like you read a novel by Wilbur Smith. You have to make references again and again and again and again throughout your life. Even if you're 80 years old, sometimes there will be questions in your mind and you will have to have something to fall back on. God knows when most of the young ones are 80 years old, what the technology will be like. It may have developed into such a level that the scan books and things like that could be implanted in your brain, in your memory. It's not an impossible task. So God knows what it will be like. But for now, until you have that technology, read the books. One more question.
What type of a yantra are the Navagraha yantras that were worshipped and given during the Rasi Mandala Puja at the temple?
The Navagraha Yantras that were worshipped and given during the Rasi Mandala are just that, Navagraha Yantras. And they have, if you look at them, that the picture is there in front of you, you will see the mandalam. The characters that you see are the first letters of the names of the planets. Pu means Buddha. Su means Shukra. Chand means Chandra. A means Angaraka. In the center, Surya. Guru. Then Ketu, Saneswara and Rahu. You will notice that there are no Bijaksharas written in this. They were specially designed and bought for this particular purpose, because if the Bijaksharas are there, the deities that are there in them will insist that daily puja is to be offered to them. Here, this yantra is benign, except the mandala, Adidevada, Pratyadidevada, Pattini, Putra, Parivara, Ayuda, Vahana, Danya, Mandala Samedam. That mandalam is what you see there. So each of those, they will be there, but they will be benign, because they have been enlivened by the Rasi Mandala Puja, but they will be benign. Okay? We will stop here today, and apparently the question and answer session is going to continue next week also, so that we can go down the list of the yantras, the slides that we have for the yantras, so that we don't miss anything. Thank you very much. Sri Gurubhyo Namah.
Thank you, Ayya, for sharing your knowledge about the yantras. The knowledge that you continue to share with us is a great gift to us, and we're so happy to experience it. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us for today's session. At this time, we'll hand it over to Vyas Uncle from Ashtanga Yoga Mandir to begin today's yoga session.
Greetings and pranams to Haranaya and all the devotees of the Sri Vidya Temple and the members of Ashtanga Yoga Mandir and all those who are viewing this session while live. Whenever we are doing the pujas or dhyana, or any of the practices, the ultimate aim is in yoga is to ensure that at least for 28 minutes, we are able to sit down comfortably. We should be in a position. And even though sometimes you may sit on a chair, you should take efforts to slowly progress yourself to sit on the floor, which is a progressive stage. So for that, there are various asanas. So for that, we will do the practice, which is called as the Sisu Balasana of 3 variations. So those who are comfortable, you will come on the video on mode. Otherwise, you can just continue to practice it. Slowly straighten your legs, relax yourself, and then slowly bend your left leg. Keep it as a support, and you take your right hand, right leg, and then you will start holding it, interlock it. The foot comes here. Sometimes, due to certain reasons, we will not be able to interlock the fingers, so you can come into this position. And then slowly start moving. And here you have it as a grip, so that it becomes easier for you. So you can bring it like this, and then slowly you will start doing the practice. This is one way. So you will do it 27 times, straighten the legs, and then you take the right leg. You can do any of the adjustments which you want, but ensure to keep the spine straight, and then you will start moving, or you will start keeping you hold the foot separately and the knees separately, and then you start moving. So this becomes the primary practice. So you should do that 27 times. Once you have finished, then you bend your leg to the side ways, and then you take your leg like this, and then if you are able to interlock, you will interlock, or if you are like this, slowly you will start to do that also 27 times. And then you will relax yourself, straighten it. Then you will bring the other leg bent, and then come into this position, and then you will slowly start moving, or you will be in this position, and then you will start moving, and then you will relax yourself. So you will do this practice for about 27 times, and then you relax yourself. Then, if you feel that you're able to do it well, then you bring the leg like this. So this is my right leg. Bring your right hand, and then you slowly hold it like this. And now, after 27 counts, you relax yourself. And then slowly come into this position. Take your hands, hold it. So this practice will create all the stretch and all the things so that you are able to bring your leg into this position in a more easier manner. So that you do for 27 counts, and then after that, you will come like this. So if you're in this position, you bring and then be there for 27 counts. Relax yourself. And then after that, you will take it and then come up. And you will be in that position for 27 counts. So generally these asanas are called as the Hindolasana or Sisubalasana. And this sequence will help tremendously for you for the hip region. Root of the spine, sometimes there may be weakness or splits, sometimes you have fallen down, imbalance of walking. These practices you can do while seated. This practice you can do it while you're on the bed. You can also do it while on the chairs. But when you're doing it in the chair, you need to ensure that the arms are not there. Basic sofas, your big sofas, you can able to do that. So practice this sequence, and then you will see a tremendous improvement around the lower hip region of your body. So once again, thank you very much, and finish your sessions with the 3 Shanti. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you.